Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of What is in Our Stand today. That's a hashtag you can follow. Hashtag What is in Our Stand today. I use that across all my social media, Facebook, obviously YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. What we have today is a broken spoke on this Bontrager wheel. And if you would please zoom in, sir. And here's the broken spoke. Now, let's give you a little bit of background. When a wheel is built, generally the drive side, where the cassette goes, the drive side and the non-drive side are typically two different size spokes. It's rare that I see the same size for both, or the same size for both sides. Now, a front wheel that's radially laced will typically have, the same exact spoke on both sides. And if you look closely, you'll see this has a low flange or a low mounting point for these spokes. And you'll see that this is a much higher flange. So you can see the difference between this being low and this being high. And if it's hard for you to capture that, please let me know how I need to rotate the wheel. Okay, so when a wheel comes in for a broken spoke, the spoke itself is only, $2, $3, $4, $5, even if it's a CX-ray spoke. But you have to literally disassemble everything. So you have to take the cassette off. If it's a disc wheel, you have to take the disc wheel off, because a lot of times you have to feed the spoke in this direction, has to go through all of that, and then you have to bend it back up. Let's say if it's a J-bend spoke, and with the cassette in the way or the disc in the way, you just can't do that. In this case, it's a rim brake wheel. We took the cassette off, but we also had to take off the tire and the rim strip. And in this case, this wheel was set up as a tubeless setup. So we had to get rid of, the tubeless tape. In this case, it's not Stan's. It's this other brand that I like to use. And it's whiskey. So this tape, I prefer it because it's thinner. It has better adhesive than the Stan's tape. But that's a video for another day. Anyway. So we had to get all the way down to the bare wheel. And now I have multiple spoke tools here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one's got 3 heads on it, because no one could ever standardize anything, because that would make too much sense. So what we have to do now is, since this spoke is missing, I can't measure this spoke because it's gone. I don't know where it is. It's out on the road somewhere. And so we have to take a spoke that is also on the non-drive side, because that's where this one broke from, the non-drive side, measure it, and then go to one of our distributors and see who has it. So that's where we are. I wanted to kind of catch you up on this story before I did the rest of this. So now, just kind of zoom in here just for the viewers. So what we're doing now is we're just taking off the last few threads of the nipple. So you may want to show the threads down here. And what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to keep the nipple pressed down against the rim, and then pull the spoke away from it when we get to a good point. So there it is. Okay, got the spoke there and the nipple separated. And because this is a carbon wheel, things end up rattling inside here quite a bit. So I typically have an extra spoke that I thread into the nipple just so I can make sure that I get it out. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. And they come in different sizes, so sometimes you don't have the right spoke. And I'm sorry that you're not seeing what I'm doing, but it'll make sense here in a minute. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken a spoke from this end going down into the nipple so that then I can just, when I've threaded it on there, I can pull it out and it doesn't rattle around, and I have to shake the wheel like mad trying to get the spoke out. Oh, I'm sorry, trying to get the nipple out. So you have threads on this end, which is where the spoke connects, but it's also, because the threads are going all the way through the nipple, you can also take a spoke, thread it into the top of it, and then pull it out. But this also helps now when it's time to put it back in, because now I have a way to hold on to that spoke. You can sometimes do it with this, with your spoke tool, with your nipple wrench, but there's nothing connected to it, right? It's still going to fall out of this wrench if you're trying to put it into the wheel. So this is how I do it. Okay, so now once we have this out, what we need to do now is take a measurement of it. And that's where this ruler comes in. Okay, so I'm going to now take that nipple off, and I will go back to this spoke to get it out of the wheel. And so here is the spoke, and now we need to figure out a way to get it out of the wheel. There it is. Okay, so it actually, you could see that this end here slots into this here, right? So it slots in here and then goes that way. Okay, and it's going, when I go to put this back in, I need to go underneath this, but we're not going to do that right now. Okay, so now I've gotten this spoke out. Now this is a good spoke, and set that aside. And then if this is too bright, please let me know. So now we put that there, and take the length of this spoke, and you'll see that that right there is 280, and that's probably 283, right? Because this next tick mark would be 285. So that's a 283 spoke. Now, this is a good example because this right here is what's called a J-bend spoke. And this is just a straight pull spoke. Because there's no J at the end of it. It's just a straight pull and J-bend. Obviously that's bent a little bit just because I use this spoke for a lot of different things. Okay, so once we know the measurement of it, then we go to our distributor, get on there and say, okay, what do you have? Because sometimes they're not going to have the 283. So Maybe you could use a 282, or maybe you could use a 284. And that's a judgment call based on how much thread engagement you saw on the nipple when you first started working on it, right? So, and just a quick primer for you. There are probably, I don't know how many permutations of spokes there are, but you have straight pull, J-bend, but then you also have double butted, triple butted, you have round spoke, you have straight gauge, you have flat arrow, you have silver, you have black. You know, so sometimes a customer calls, hey, I have a broken spoke on a wheel, and they're like, oh, I just need a spoke. Okay, it's a little bit more involved than that. Oh yeah, I mean, it's my regular bike. I just have a standard bike. I don't even have a race bike. I'm like, please bring it in. I need to take a measurement. I need to see what kind of spoke you have. And then also these threads, and the thickness of the spoke on a round spoke or whatever there's a different size. And so the nipples have to be the right combination as well. A lot of variation. So be kind to your local bike shop when you go in and you're like, oh, I just have a broken spoke. No, it's a lot more involved. I think you saw some of it today. But if you have any questions, please drop them down below. And, broken spokes, it's not that big of a deal. It's a fairly easy job. You can't expect your bike shop to have all the different sizes of spokes, all the different, like I said, straight gauge, double butted, triple butted. Let me explain the double butted, triple butted thing. Basically what that means is on the two ends, it'll be thicker. If it's double butted, it would be thicker than it is in the middle, right? So thicker here because that's where it's anchored to the nipple on the rim, and thicker here because that's where it's anchored onto the hub. So you have a spoke that's thicker and thicker, but thinner in the middle, it's lighter, that kind of stuff. Straight gauge, of course, is just no butting. And then, of course, round and arrow. So, okay, that's all for today. Please like and subscribe, and please share this with your friends. If you have any questions, please drop them down below. And in the meantime, we'll see you up the road.